So this is the project. It's about treescape expansion, something we've been hearing a lot about, but specifically about the scale mismatch. So we all know that land use plays a key role in the climate and ecological crises. Treescape expansion can represent a solution to both, I think it's fair to say. And decision makers need to know about the form, location and consideration of that. What we've got in the UK tends to be a mix of a top-down approach where the government sets policy, regulations and funding opportunities, but it's still an application-driven process. It's landowners who decide whether to plant trees or not. So we've got that bottom-up driver on it as well. So the key question is, how can landscape scale treescape expansion be designed and governed across scales to achieve the best outcomes for people and nature? So it's looking UK-wide and a couple of case studies. So work package 1, looking at the local ambition for towards the national context. It's going to work through simulation. This is building on previous work in the RSPB on something called the Land Use Scenarios Project. So thousands of future land use scenarios will be considered, looking across the agriculture, forestry and other land use sector and trying to model the impact on greenhouse gas emissions, food production, and because it's come out of the RSPB, unsurprisingly, on bird populations as that kind of surrogate for all diversity. It's going to develop something called a shiny web app for participants, and and that's going to be used to identify the land use implications of the highest performing scenarios, applying it to the 2 case study landscapes. So in work package 2, going to take that work forward, talking to stakeholders, using participatory scenario planning, evaluate those impacts from work package 1, and the key idea is to understand how different actors, different nested scales can work in synergy. So the synthesis comes in work package 3 to produce or co-produce treescape expansion action plans for each of those landscapes. And then really to try and match up what you get from the bottom-up approach, how that fits with the top-down, the tree targets that we talked about at the beginning of this conference. And hopefully the case studies will be worthwhile, and thus we can produce best practice guidance on how to do this in future rather than how not to do this in future.